Hi everybody, today we're going to go over how to plant the perfect garden pot or container that includes several different tips and tricks that I've learned over the years as the owner of Mark's Lawn and Garden and a 25-year expert in landscaping. So today I've assembled some of my favorite plants and we're going to talk about what those are. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take this pot. This is a smaller pot. You can choose any pot size that you'd like depending on what area, how large of an area you want to cover. But today we're going to make these pots sit here on the front patio that you can see here for the entrance to add some curb appeal. So we've chosen a little bit smaller pot. So what we're going to do is we're going to first drill some drainage holes in the bottom of this pot. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to add a rock, a heavy rock. We don't want this to blow away. It's obviously a windy day today, and these can blow away. They're made out of plastic or resin, so we want to make sure they stay put. And a rock will do that, but in addition to that, it helps for a great way for the soil moisture to drain out at the bottom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our soil. Now this soil, it's very important that you select the right soil. What I've discovered over the years is the best soil, the best potting mix is great drainage, and it has a mixture of a little bit of compost in it. Not a lot, because compost can get really hot. So you don't want to put a lot, but get a good potting soil mix and then fill it not quite full. Once you got the soil in place and you haven't filled it quite up high enough, you feel like it's a good setup. So what you want to do now is you want to select the flowers that you want. In this case, there's several flowers that are my favorites, especially for pots and containers. And these are the flowers that have really done well for me in the last 25 years as I've done this here in Utah. You can use a variety of different things, flowers and plants, to create height. In the middle of the pot, you lay out your height. Now, we don't necessarily need both of these, so I'm going to put this white geranium, and these need full sun to part shade. They do really well in a sun exposure area of this type, where it gets kind of a west sun, because they're going to get 6 hours of sun, but not necessarily sun all day. And geraniums like that. So I'm going to combine these two together. That way we get a nice white on contrast to the pink. The next thing you want to do with a pot is you want to lay out, this is a smaller pot, so we won't have room for mid-size flowers, but the next thing you want to do is create a border that will be trailers, plants that cascade over the sides and will grow down to where you can't even see the pot anymore. And that's what makes the most dramatic, beautiful pots. You want to pick the right selection, and the ones that I've found over the years that I really like. Bacopa, this is a great plant, comes in various colors. I've got white and purple. So I'm going to create some contrasting colors. I've already got white, so I'm going to go with a different contrast of this purple. We're just going to set this with our 2 fingers. You can see that. Just going to create like a little home. See how deep that root ball is. We want to go kind of deep with it. Remember, we haven't filled this pot up fully yet with soil, so we don't want to go too deep. Okay, so we're just going to set that at home. Then we're going to grab these, and a little trick here, you can just tear these down like that. And that way it's very easy to pull these tender little plants out. Okay, this is lobelia. Lobelia is a wonderful flower, and it has a wonderful dark, they have different colors, but this one's a dark bluish, and it's a striking contrast to these colors. Okay, the wave petunia has a dark purple color, and they have they have every color you could imagine with these, but we're just gonna set this over here, nice and close, and kind of just push some soil up against the base of its root to hold it there. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little different type of, this isn't a flowering flower. What this is sweet potato vine, and it comes in a green and a purple. And in Utah, this is my favorite, one of my favorites. This is a wonderful plant for containers because it cascades. It grows and grows and grows all over the edges and down and all over. And if you keep it well fed with nitrogen, we'll go over the feeding process. This is a great plant for not only containers like this, but also hanging containers if you were going to hang them on your eaves. So we'll just put this in here, and that will grow and take over the place. Now we've got them all set, so we're just going to pour in some of our soil here. While I'm doing this, you'll notice I'm just kind of taking my 2 fingers and I'm just kind of gently pushing down on these. And the key here, as you're doing this, is to create like a little moat. With my little 11-year-old daughter, when she helps me with this, she likes that part. Dad, you gotta create the moat. And she's right. That way the water, as we water this, will stay there. Okay, now I feel like I've got it all pretty well pushed in place here. You'll see how close the flowers are to each other. That's important, because as these grow, and we could probably even fit one more in here, but we're gonna save some for the other pot. But as these grow, they'll fill in, you won't even see any dirt, and that's a key. So we're gonna, before we're done with this pot, we wanna go ahead and fertilize it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add, if this were a gallon, I'm just using a small watering container here. If this were a gallon, we would put a whole tablespoon. In this case, it's about a quarter of that or half of that, so we're just going to put in a little bit. Okay, this is water soluble plant food. I'm just using a pitcher here, but you can use a whole gallon watering can if you'd like. I didn't have one with me today. So as it dissolves in there, and you've created these little moat rings around each flower, you can come in here. Again, we don't want to just hurry and water this. We want to give it a long, deep. This particular one was a little dry when we pulled it out of its flat, so we want to give that a little extra water. Sweet potato vine, the 2 geraniums, the bacopa, the wave petunia, another wave petunia, now this plant food is made up mostly of nitrogen. It's 25% nitrogen, and it has 8% phosphorus and 16% potassium. So the 3 numbers on the front help you understand what's in the plant food, and that's very critical. We can talk about that more. Now that we have this pot, let's talk about ways to feed it and water it. There's a product called Easy Wet. It's a soil surfactant or watering agent that helps the soil retain its water in really, really hot months, when what will happen is this soil will get super dry and it will start pulling away from the edges here. When that happens, you'll start to water it and you'll wonder why it's not going through the soil. It's going to the edges of the soil and going right down to the bottom. It's not even about watering the flowers that you need to water. Mixing about 3 ounces to a gallon of that product will help this soil really hold all of that water and retain it through those very hot months. You also want to water these once a day. When you water them, don't just water them from the surface. Don't take a hose or watering can and just water them. If you're going to do with a drip, make sure the drip has enough water to soak all the way through and drain out the bottom. Same with the hose. If you're going to use a hose, make sure not to use a high pressure spray. Very light shower, hold it close, and let the water seep down in, and then you'll know when you're done when the water drains out the bottom and you can see it. That's a good watering, and that's very important to note. Here in Utah with our drought situation, it's very important for us to understand what helps soil retain water so we can water less and be more water wise. Very important. Okay, let's talk about how to feed your pot, okay? For these flowers to grow and flourish, especially in the hot summers like we have here in Utah, and for these flowers to cascade over the sides like they're designed to do, they need to be fed regularly. What happens is when you water this pot every day, which is what it requires to be able to keep the moisture in the soil and the plant roots happy, is that the nutrients will actually leach through the soil and drain out the bottom. So it requires you to fertilize frequently. Some of the products that I like to use are the Easy Wet, which I discussed earlier. The Easy Wet is actually the water agent, or the surfactant, which helps bind the water molecules to itself and keep the water retained inside the soil. The second thing I like to use is a compost tea. The product that I recommend is Seedlinger's Fertilizers. The compost tea adds an immense array of organics and compost tea mixture into the soil. Even though we already have some compost in here that will help, and we've added some plant food when we first planted it, that will help it to continually get those nutrients that it needs. What you do is you take a product made by Fertilome. It's a plant food, and it's a 20-20-20 even general purpose fertilizer made for plants, and you would apply that you would put some of that in a watering can, shake it up, and pour it on this plant on, let's say, a Monday. Then on Thursday, you would come in and you would apply a Fertilome blooming and rooting product. Again, mix it in the watering can with a gallon with the water, put it in here, and that will help develop the roots deeper and make the blooms much more dramatic and beautiful. So the blooming and rooting is critically important. Why? Because the middle number is the highest number in that fertilizer. And the middle number is phosphorus. Phosphorus develops roots and creates beautiful, dramatic blossoms on flowering plants. All right, so that should help you. Those 4 products will help you make this pot an absolute showpiece. Okay, so we planted the pot. We've done all the steps. We've got all our flowers in there. We have got it ready, and now we have put the drip irrigator in here, the emitter that emits little drips of water. What's great about this is you can actually adjust the head to throw that water a little bit further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just adjust that just slightly and make sure every plant is getting its thing. And there you go. So that'll happen once a day. You can actually program your timer to work on its own program, independent of the program that runs all of your sprinklers at once. So in this case, I would recommend setting your timer to run on its own independent cycle, program B, for example, every single day for about 5 minutes. And that will soak deep down in. You don't need more than 5 minutes. If this video was helpful and you gained from it the tips and tricks that I offer and some of the things that I've learned over the years, be sure to like and subscribe my channel, Mark's Lawn and Garden, where you'll be notified when new videos come out. I try to post once a week, so be sure to like and tap the follow button so you get notified and stay in touch. Very important. Thank you so much for your support, and be sure to put in the comments things that you want to learn about, things that topics that you might want me to cover that would be helpful to you and your family and your making your project and landscapes better. Thank you.